Some doors did not close because no one dared to slam them. They stayed half open for years, letting in just enough warmth to make a woman forget she was still standing in the cold. On Tuesday morning, Margot found herself rearranging her schedule around Friday. Not dramatically. Not obviously. No one watching her at her desk would have guessed anything had changed. She still answered emails with clean efficiency. Still approved a floral proposal for a spring museum dinner. Still rejected 3 linen samples because one leaned too yellow, one too gray, and one looked like it belonged in a hotel ballroom that apologized too much. But Friday had entered the week. That was the problem. It sat there at the edge of everything. A dinner plan. A specific evening. A real time. Not a late night text. Not a maybe I'll come by. Not a car outside with the engine running and Desire already making decisions neither woman would name. Friday. Margot tried not to make too much of it. She failed quietly. At 11:30, she called the restaurant and changed the reservation from 7:30 to 7. Then changed it back 10 minutes later, because 7:30 felt less eager. At noon, she checked the weather. At 1, she told herself she was ridiculous and opened a vendor contract. At 1:15, Celeste texted her a photograph of an old brass door knocker shaped like a lion with the message, "I found him judging everyone in Beacon Hill." Margot smiled before she could stop herself. He looks qualified. Overqualified. Like most historic hardware. Should I be worried you're emotionally attached to door knockers? Only the ones with standards. Margot looked at the message longer than necessary. Then she put the phone face down and tried to work. The phone buzzed again 20 minutes later. Not Celeste. "Sloane, are you busy?" Margot stared at the name. The room did not change. But her pulse shifted. Yes. That means no. It means yes. You would have ignored me if you were actually busy. Margot closed her eyes. That was the awful thing about history. It gave people maps. What do you want, Sloane? The dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. To see you. Margot did not answer. She picked up the cold coffee, took one sip, regretted it, and set it down. The phone stayed silent. That was worse. Sloane was better at pursuit when she could dress it as play. She knew how to tease, provoke, lean into a room, and make wanting feel inevitable. Silence from her felt different. Less polished. More honest. Margot opened the vendor contract and read the same sentence 4 times. At 2, she put the phone in her desk drawer. At 2:03, she opened the drawer and took it out again. Wonderful, she said to no one. Extremely mature. By Wednesday, the air in Boston had turned sharper. Wind moved down the streets in clean, cold gusts, lifting coat hems and pushing people faster toward doors. Margot spent the morning at a hotel walkthrough near Copley, then took a call in the back of a car while watching the city slide by in panes of gray glass and old stone. At 4:30, she returned home. She did not expect Sloane to be there. That was not true. Some part of her had been expecting Sloane all day. The part she trusted least. Sloane stood outside Margot's building with her hands in the pockets of a dark coat, hair moving slightly in the wind. No coffee this time. No clever offering. No paper bag. No excuse she could hold up between them and call casual. Just Sloane. Waiting. Margot stopped at the bottom of the steps. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The city moved around them. A woman pushed a stroller past the corner. A man in a long scarf balanced 2 takeout coffees and nearly lost one to the wind. Somewhere, a dog barked from an open car window as if deeply offended by traffic. Sloane looked at Margot's face. "I know," she said. Margot's fingers tightened around her keys. "You know what? That you're going to tell me I shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be here." Sloane nodded once, almost like she had needed to hear the line performed. "I wanted to see you anyway." That was Sloane at her most dangerous. Not when she was clever. Not when she was jealous. Not when she smiled like the rules were furniture and she had no intention of walking around them. This. Plain wanting. No decoration. Margot looked toward the door of her building. then back at Sloane. You could have called. I did. No, you texted. I considered calling. A heroic effort. Sloane's mouth moved. Almost a smile, then failed. The failure mattered. Margot sighed. Come upstairs. Sloane did not look victorious. That made it harder. Inside the apartment, everything felt too familiar. Sloane was hanging her coat on the hook because Margot had trained her into some habits, even if she could not train her into a future. Sloane walked into the living room without asking where to stand. Sloane glanced at the flowers on the table, the open laptop, the wool throw folded over the chair. Sloane in daylight again, but different from Sunday. Less restless, more contained. Margot took off her own coat and placed it carefully over the back of the dining chair. She did not offer wine. She did not offer coffee. Sloane noticed. Should I sit? Sloane asked. If you want. That sounds like a trap. It's a chair. Sloane looked at her. Then she laughed softly, despite herself. For 1 second, the apartment warmed around the old rhythm of them. Then it faded. Sloane stayed standing. I'm not seeing anyone else, she said. Margot went still. The sentence landed in the room without introduction. Sloane looked almost angry at herself for saying it, but she kept going. I don't know if you think I am, or if she thinks I am, or if that's what makes this easier for you. Sloane. I'm not. Her voice sharpened, then steadied. I haven't been. Not in the way you mean. Margot set her keys on the table. Carefully. You didn't need to tell me that. Yes, I did. Why? Because I can feel you making me smaller than I am. Margot inhaled. That hurt because it was not entirely unfair. Not because Margot had thought Sloane careless or dishonest. She had not. But perhaps in trying to survive the shape of what they were, she had turned Sloane into something easier to leave. A woman who only wanted the night. A woman who did not care. A woman who would shrug and find another fire. Sloane was not that simple. Neither of them was. I'm not trying to make you smaller, Margot said. Sloane looked away, jaw tight. You have your life, she said. I have mine. We come together because we want to. Because it's good. Because we don't have to perform anything for anyone. I thought that was the point. Margot's chest tightened. There it was. The argument. Not cruel. Not shallow. Almost reasonable. Sloane turned back to her. I don't lie to you. I don't promise what I can't give. I don't ask you to be anyone else. You don't ask me permission to breathe. We don't ruin each other's lives with expectations. No, Margot said quietly. We just don't build one. Sloane flinched. The room went still. Margot had not meant to say it like that. Or perhaps she had. Sloane looked toward the window, then back. Why does it have to be built? Because I want something that can hold. It holds. No, Margot said. It burns. Sloane's eyes flashed. Don't say that like it's nothing. I'm not. You think because it isn't neat, it isn't real? No. Because I don't show up with dinner reservations and 5-year plans, I don't care? Margot's voice softened. I know you care. Sloane stopped. The fight seemed to lose its place for half a second. Margot wished it had not. Sloane looked at her. Then what do you want from me? The question was not a challenge. Not at first. It was real. And Margot, who had imagined this conversation in fragments for years without ever trusting it to arrive whole, found herself unable to answer quickly. What did she want? A weekend that did not begin with a text after 10. A morning without waiting for the other woman to leave. A table reserved in advance. A drawer. A holiday that did not need explaining. Someone who would stand in the ordinary hours and not only the charged ones. Someone who would ask how the hard parts of the day had gone before reaching for her waist. Someone who would stay long enough for the heat to become tenderness without seeming confused by the transition. But saying all of that out loud felt like opening a box full of small embarrassments. Sloane watched her struggle. Her face changed. A little softer. A little frightened. I want you, Sloane said. Margot closed her eyes. Sloane came closer. I want you, she repeated, lower now. I don't know why that keeps turning into a failure. Margot opened her eyes. Because it was not a failure. That was the cruelest part. Sloane wanting her was real. It was not fake. Not temporary in the way people meant when they dismissed desire as easy. Desire was not always easy. Sometimes it survived for years. Sometimes it learned the exact shape of a woman's body, the sound she made when she stopped trying to be careful, the way she liked her coffee, and the way her anger went quiet before it showed teeth. Sometimes desire stayed. It simply refused to grow where it was needed. I want you too, Margot said. Sloane's breath shifted. But I can't keep living on moments. The words entered the room slowly. Sloane stared at her. Then she laughed once, not because anything was funny. Moments, she said. Yes. That's what you think this is? Margot did not answer. Sloane stepped closer, and this time Margot could feel the anger in her like heat from a door opening onto flame. 3 years, Sloane said. And you call it moments. I spent 3 years thinking it would become more. Sloane's expression tightened. Margot forced herself to continue. Every time we ended up together, I thought maybe this time something would shift. Not everything. Not some dramatic reinvention. Just something. A plan. A little room. A little future. And every time it didn't, it took more out of me than it gave back. Sloane's face changed. The anger did not leave. Pain joined it. That is not fair, she said. I know. No, you don't. Sloane's voice roughened. You're talking like I've been taking pieces of you and leaving nothing behind. Margot's eyes stung. You have given me a lot. Then why are you leaving? Because what you give me doesn't become a life. Sloane turned away sharply. For a moment, she faced the window, one hand pressed against the back of her neck. Margot could see the line of tension through her shoulders. She did not look careless. She did not look cold. She looked like a woman being told the things she knew, somewhere beneath all her beautiful arguments, might not be enough. When she turned back, her eyes were bright. Is that what she gives you? Margot's heart sank. Sloane. No. Is it? Sloane's smile appeared, sharp and wounded. A life? After one coffee. Don't make her small because this hurts. Sloane went very still. Then she nodded slowly. That was almost elegant. Margot stepped toward her. I'm not choosing her to punish you. You're choosing her. The words were quiet. Bare. Margot could not answer. Not honestly. Not in the way Sloane wanted. Because the truth was not clean yet. Margot had not chosen a whole future. She had not ended every old attachment with perfect courage. She had not become suddenly simple because a woman with steady hands had kissed her near a drafting table and offered Friday. But something in her had turned. And Sloane could feel it. That was why she was here. Sloane crossed the space between them before Margot could decide what to do. Her hands came to Margot's face. Not harshly. Desperately. The kiss was not like Sunday's. Sunday had been a heat rushing through familiar rooms. This was fire trying to argue. Margot should have stopped it immediately. She did not. Sloane's mouth met hers with a force that stole thought, and Margot's body answered because it knew this language too well to pretend ignorance. Her hands went to Sloane's wrists. She meant to pull them away. Instead, she held them there, feeling Sloane's pulse jump under her fingers. Sloane kissed her harder. Margot opened to it with a sound she hated herself for making and could not take back. The apartment disappeared again. Not fully. Not like before. This time, the truth stayed in the room with them. But the body had its own grief, and Margot's body grieved Sloane already. Sloane backed her against the dining table, not roughly, but urgently enough that Margot felt the edge of it at the back of her thighs. A stack of papers slid sideways. A pen rolled off and hit the floor. Sloane's hand moved into Margot's hair, while the other found her waist with a familiarity that nearly broke her. Margot kissed her back. Not because she had changed her mind. Because she had not stopped wanting her. That was the part no one warned you about. Want did not politely leave when wisdom arrived. It stayed. It reached. It burned in the middle of the right decision and made the right decision feel like a loss. Sloane's mouth moved to her jaw, then to the side of her neck. Margot's head tipped back before she could stop it. Her fingers gripped the front of Sloane's sweater, pulling her closer for one breath, 2, 3. Sloane felt it. See, she whispered against Margot's skin. This is not nothing. Margot's eyes closed. No one said it was. Sloane kissed her throat, slower now, as if she knew exactly how to make the argument without words. Her hands moved over Margot's back, drawing her in, and the sheer familiarity of it made Margot ache. Sloane knew where to touch her, knew when to pause, knew the difference between Margot resisting and Margot trying to survive what she wanted. Margot's hands slid into Sloane's hair. For one dangerous moment, she gave in fully. The kiss that followed was deep, hot, almost unbearable. Sloane pressed closer, and Margot felt the strength of her want, the honest force of it. There was nothing casual here. Nothing careless. Sloane was not playing with her. Sloane wanted her like a claim she had never learned how to turn into commitment. Margot's breath broke. Sloane heard and pulled her closer. The dining table shifted under them. A glass vase rattled. That sound cut through. Small. Ordinary. Enough. Margot turned her head. Sloane's mouth landed against her cheek. Margot, Sloane breathed. Margot kept her eyes closed. If she opened them, she might fail herself. Sloane, she said. Sloane went still. She knew. Maybe from the way Margot said her name. Maybe from the hand that had stopped pulling and started holding her back. Maybe because after 3 years, Sloane did know her. Just not in the way Margot needed most. No, Sloane said. The word was quiet. Margot opened her eyes. Sloane's face was close. Too close. Her mouth softened from kissing. Her breathing uneven. Her eyes bright with heat and panic. Margot touched her cheek. The tenderness of it hurt them both. I can't, Margot said. Sloane swallowed. You can. That's why I have to stop. Sloane pulled back as if the words had actually touched her. The space between them felt cold immediately. Margot straightened slowly, her hands shaking just enough that she clasped them together. Sloane saw that too. Her face twisted. So that's it, she said. Margot did not answer. You get one woman who offers dinner and suddenly I'm some bad habit you're proud of quitting. No. That is exactly what this feels like. I'm not proud, Margot said. Her voice broke slightly, and she hated that. I'm tired. Sloane stared at her. Margot took a breath. I have loved parts of what we are, she said. Maybe more than I should have. Maybe enough to confuse myself for years. But I cannot keep waiting for those parts to become the whole thing. Sloane looked away. Her jaw worked once. You'll miss it. I know. You'll miss me. Margot's throat tightened. I know that too. Sloane laughed, but it sounded dangerously close to something else. No, she said. You'll miss this when calm starts feeling like silence. Margot closed her eyes. There it was. The wound was dressed as a prophecy. She could have argued. She could have said Celeste was not silence. That steadiness was not emptiness. That she was not choosing a quiet room because she was afraid of the heat. But Sloane was not ready to hear that. Maybe Margot was not ready to say it cleanly. So she said only, maybe. Sloane looked at her. That hurt more than anger would have. Maybe. Sloane repeated. I don't know everything. The honesty stole the fight from the room for a second. Margot looked at her, really looked. I only know I can't keep doing this and pretending it isn't costing me. Sloane's eyes filled. She blinked it back before anything could fall. Pride survived even when nothing else knew where to stand. For a moment, Margot thought Sloane might reach for her again. She did not. She picked up her coat from the chair. Her hand was steady. Too steady. At the door, she stopped. Without turning around, she said, "I did want you." Margot's heart twisted. "I know." Sloane nodded once. Then she left. The door closed behind her. Not loudly. Not gently. Just closed. Margot stood in the apartment without moving. The vase on the table had shifted slightly from where Sloane had pressed her against it. Papers had fallen to the floor. Her hair was down. Her lips still felt warm. Her hands still remembered Sloane's sweater under her hands, Sloane's pulse, Sloane's body saying what Sloane could not build with words. Margot bent and picked up the fallen pen. Then sat down on the floor beside the table because standing required more authority than she had. She stayed there for a while. No tears came. That seemed unfair. The body should have rules for endings. At some point, her phone buzzed. Margot did not look. It buzzed again. This time she reached for it because some habits remained stronger than pride. "Celeste, Friday still works for you?" Margot stared at the message. A simple question. No demand. No heat reaching through the screen to pull her apart. "Friday still works for you?" Margot could have lied. Could have said yes immediately. Could have carried the whole tangled ache into Friday and let Celeste's steadiness absorb the impact without warning. But Celeste had asked for honesty. Not certainty. Honesty. Margot typed slowly. "Yes. But I should tell you I'm not arriving uncomplicated." The reply did not come instantly. Margot watched the screen and hated herself a little for wanting it to. "Then, I didn't assume you were." Another pause. "Come anyway. Just come honestly." Margot read it once. Then again. Something in her loosened. Not relief exactly. Permission, perhaps. No, not permission. A boundary with a door in it. Friday arrived in clear, cold light. Boston looked almost polished by the time evening came, the streets dry now, the sky a hard blue fading toward navy. Margot spent most of the day moving carefully through work, as if any sudden action might disturb the bruise Sloane had left without touching her cruelly. By 6:30, she was dressed. Black silk blouse, wide-leg trousers, camel coat, hair loose, then pinned, then loose again because the pinned version looked like armor, and she was tired of pretending armor did not weigh anything. The restaurant she chose sat on a quiet side street near the water, small enough that the tables did not feel like a performance. Low lamps, dark wood, white candles, windows that reflected the room back softly instead of exposing it. Good lighting, as promised. No bad art. No aggressive music. No menu trying too hard to be clever. Celeste was already there. Margot paused at the entrance when she saw her. Celeste wore deep charcoal, not black, a fitted jacket over something soft and ivory beneath. Her hair was tucked behind one ear. Her phone lay face down beside her water glass, ignored. She looked up before the hostess reached the table. Their eyes met. Celeste did not smile immediately. She looked first. Really looked. As if she could tell something had happened and would not insult Margot by pretending otherwise. Then she smiled. Small. Warm. Margot crossed the room. "Good lighting," Celeste said when she reached the table. Margot sat down. "I take standards seriously." I noticed. A waiter appeared. Water was poured. Menus opened. Ordinary things happened with enough grace to let Margot breathe. For the first few minutes, they spoke of easy things. A contractor who believed historic meant expensive beige. A client who wanted candles on a balcony in March. A hostess who moved through the dining room like she had personally negotiated peace among all the tables. Margot laughed. Celeste smiled. The evening found its feet. But Celeste did not let it become a hiding place. After the waiter took their order and left, she rested one hand near her glass and looked at Margot across the candlelight. "I'm glad you came," she said. Margot's fingers tightened in her lap. "So am I." That sounded true and complicated. "It is." Celeste nodded. She did not reach across the table. Did not soften the room too quickly. "Do you want to tell me?" she asked. Margot looked at the candle between them. The flame moved slightly whenever someone passed. I ended something, she said. Celeste's face changed. Not surprise. Not triumph. Care. That sounds painful. It was. Are you all right? Margot breathed out. I don't know. Celeste accepted that. The simple acceptance of it nearly undid her. I didn't come here because I'm done feeling things for someone else, Margot said. I came because I want to be honest about where I am. Celeste's gaze held hers. Good. That's all. That's not small. Margot looked down, then back up. I don't want to use you to escape anything. I won't let you. The answer came so calmly that Margot almost laughed, because it was exactly Celeste. No drama. No gracious suffering. Just a boundary laid on the table beside the water glass. Fair, Margot said. Celeste leaned back slightly. I like you, Margot. I'm attracted to you. I'd like to know what this could become if you are actually present for it. Margot's heart beat once hard. But I'm not asking you to be certain tonight, Celeste continued. I'm asking you to be honest while you're here. There it was. The line Margot had needed and feared. No pressure to decide the rest of her life over dinner. No permission to drift through the evening half elsewhere. Margot looked at Celeste and felt the strange sensation of being given both room and responsibility. I can do that, she said. Celeste's expression softened. Good. Dinner unfolded slowly after that. Not heavy. That was the surprise. The honesty did not crush the evening. It made space for it. They ate. They talked. Celeste told her about a disastrous site visit where a client's golden retriever had stolen a paint sample and run through a half-restored library like an expensive beige comet. Margot told her about the only wedding she had ever seriously considered abandoning halfway through, which involved a swan, an ice sculpture, and a mother of the bride who believed weather could be negotiated with enough money. Celeste laughed so hard she touched 2 fingers to her mouth. Margot watched the gesture and forgot the end of her sentence. Celeste noticed. She lowered her hand slowly. The conversation paused. Not stopped. Shifted. The candlelight moved over Celeste's face, catching the curve of her cheek, the warm intelligence in her eyes, the faint silver near her temple. Margot felt the pull again, slower than Sloane's fire but not weaker. Different. Less like being consumed. More like being drawn closer to something that would still be there when she opened her eyes. Celeste's foot brushed hers beneath the table. Accidental, perhaps. Neither of them moved away. Margot looked down at the table for 1 second. Then back up. Celeste was watching her. Not asking. Waiting. Margot smiled first. Celeste's mouth curved in answer. By the time they stepped outside, the city had gone dark and cold. The restaurant door closed behind them, leaving the warm noise inside. The street was quiet, slick with reflected lamplight, though it had not rained. A car passed slowly, tires whispering over pavement. Somewhere near the water, rigging clinked faintly against metal. Margot buttoned her coat. Celeste stood beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. I can call a car, Celeste said. Margot looked at her. For me or for you? For whichever one of us is about to pretend she wants to go home alone. Margot's pulse shifted. Direct. Again. Always. I'm not pretending, Margot said. No. No. Celeste turned toward her. The streetlight caught in her eyes. Come with me then. Margot should have asked where. She did not. Celeste's apartment was not far. A short car ride through narrow streets, and then a walk beneath old brick, past dark windows and iron railings. She lived in a restored building near the water, not showy, not anonymous. The lobby was quiet, with stone floors and a wooden bench that looked too old to be decorative. The elevator rose slowly enough to make silence noticeable. Margot stood beside Celeste, close but not touching. Their reflections appeared faintly in the elevator doors. 2 women in winter coats, composed enough to pass for ordinary. Nothing about the space between them felt ordinary. Celeste's apartment opened into warmth. Not the aggressive kind of warmth produced by money trying to prove itself. Real warmth. Lamps instead of overhead lights. Bookshelves. A long table near the windows covered with one open book, a ceramic bowl, and a vase of branches. A sofa in dark green wool. A record player on a low cabinet. Framed sketches on the walls. One narrow window overlooking a strip of city lights and black water beyond. Margot stepped inside and stopped. "This is beautiful," she said. Celeste took off her coat. "Thank you." "No, I mean it. I know." Margot turned. Celeste stood near the entry, watching her with an expression that had lost some of its careful distance. The apartment was private in a way the studio had not been. The studio had shown what Celeste built. This showed how she lived. The difference mattered. Margot removed her coat slowly and hung it where Celeste pointed. Her fingers felt less certain than usual. Celeste noticed. She came closer, but not all the way. "Still here?" Celeste asked quietly. Margot looked at her. The question was not about the room. "Yes." Celeste nodded. Then she crossed the remaining space and kissed her. Not suddenly. Not with Sloane's desperate fire. But with a warmth that felt no less dangerous for being controlled. Margot's hand rose to Celeste's shoulder. The fabric of her jacket was smooth under her palm. Celeste's mouth moved over hers slowly at first, giving Margot time to arrive inside the kiss instead of being swept into it. That almost made Margot tremble. Celeste felt it. Her hand settled at Margot's waist. Steady. Present. Margot kissed her back, and this time there was no studio. No work day. No assistant walking past glass walls. No phone about to ring. Only the apartment, the lamps, the cold city beyond the windows, and Celeste making space for desire without pretending it was harmless. The kiss deepened. Margot stepped closer. Celeste's breath changed. That sound, small, contained, real, pulled Margot in more sharply than she expected. She slid her hand from Celeste's shoulder to the back of her neck and felt warmth there, the living pulse under the skin. Celeste's composure was not the absence of want. It was discipline. And Margot, for the first time, understood the pleasure of being wanted by someone who was choosing every second of restraint. Celeste drew back just enough to look at her. "If you need to slow down," she said, voice low, "we slow down." Margot's throat tightened. She shook her head once. "No." Celeste searched her face. Margot held still for it. "I'm here," Margot said. That was enough. Celeste kissed her again. This time, the restraint thinned. Not vanished. Thinned. Margot felt it in the firmer press of Celeste's hand at her waist, the way Celeste stepped into her, the way the kiss gathered heat without losing patience. Margot's back met the wall near the hallway, and Celeste stopped immediately, checking her face. Margot almost smiled. She took Celeste's hand and placed it back at her waist. Celeste's eyes darkened. "Careful," she murmured. Margot leaned in until her mouth brushed Celeste's. "You keep saying that, because you keep making it necessary." This time, Margot smiled into the kiss. Celeste answered with a low sound that went straight through her. The evening changed after that. Into a series of moments Margot would remember too clearly. Celeste's hands sliding into her hair, careful at first, then less so when Margot leaned into the touch. Margot's fingers working slowly at the buttons of Celeste's jacket, each one a small decision. The jacket falling over the back of a chair. Celeste touching the side of Margot's face as if there were no part of her that needed to be hurried past. The hallway light dimmed behind them. The bedroom door half open. The soft edge of the bed against Margot's legs. The breath Celeste took when Margot pulled her closer. There was heat. God, there was heat. But it did not erase Margot. That was the difference. It did not ask her to disappear into it, to become only reaction, only hunger, only the woman who could be undone and then left to reassemble herself in silence. Celeste wanted her with a steadiness that made every touch feel both sensual and deliberate. She kissed Margot's mouth, then her cheek, then the place just below her ear until Margot's fingers tightened in the fabric at Celeste's back. She paused when Margot's breath caught. Listened. Then continued when Margot turned toward her. The room filled with small sounds. Breath. Fabric. The shifting of sheets. A soft laugh when Margot's earring caught briefly in Celeste's hair, and both women had to stop, faces close, laughing quietly into the charged dark. That laugh undid something too. Desire with room for humor. Heat with room for breath. Celeste set the earring carefully on the bedside table like it mattered, then looked back at Margot with such focused want that the laughter faded naturally into something deeper. Margot reached for her. Celeste came. The night opened slowly. No performance. No rush. No need to prove that what happened between them was bigger than what had come before. It was not a competition. That was what made it feel different. Celeste did not touch her like she was trying to erase anyone else's fingerprints. She touched her like Margot was present now, and now was worth her full attention. Margot gave more than she expected. Not because she was swept away before she could think. Because she chose to. Because each time Celeste paused, Margot came closer. Because each time Celeste watched her face, Margot let herself be seen a little longer. Because when the heat rose and Margot's breath broke, Celeste did not smile like she had won. She kissed her again softer, as if the breaking deserved care. Later, the apartment was quiet. The city lights beyond the window had blurred into small reflections against the glass. The room was warm under the blankets, full of dim lamplight and the slow return of ordinary breathing. Margot lay on her back, one hand resting over her ribs, staring at the ceiling. Celeste lay beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. Not almost. Not by accident. Touching. The difference was absurd. It was also enormous. For a long while, neither of them spoke. Margot listened to the room. The faint hum of heat in the pipes. A car passing below. Celeste's breathing beside her. Not leaving. Not reaching for a phone. Not dressing quietly while Margot pretended not to care. Just there. Celeste turned her head slightly. You're thinking. Margot smiled faintly. I do that. I noticed. I'm sorry. Don't be. Margot kept her eyes on the ceiling. Celeste did not ask what she was thinking. That made it harder not to say. I'm not used to this part, Margot said. Celeste was quiet for a moment. Then, gently, the quiet. Margot swallowed. The staying. Celeste's hand moved under the blanket and found hers. No drama. No speech. Just fingers closing around fingers. Margot looked at their joined hands. The part that undid her was not the heat. She knew how to survive heat. It was the quiet afterward. Celeste looking at her and saying simply, "Stay." Margot turned her face toward her. Celeste's eyes were open, watching her in the low light. "Stay," Celeste said. There it was. Not a question. Not a trap. Not a demand dressed as tenderness. A wish. Clear enough to stand on. Margot's chest tightened so quickly she almost laughed, but it would not have come out right. "You're very direct," she whispered. "I know. What if I'm terrible in the morning?" Celeste's mouth curved. "Then I'll make coffee strong enough to compensate." Margot looked at her for a long moment. Then she nodded. Yes. Celeste's fingers tightened around hers once. That was all. No celebration. No pressure. No bright future dragged into the room too soon. Just yes. Margot turned onto her side, and Celeste shifted closer. Not crowding. Not claiming. Making space, then sharing it. Margot rested her head near Celeste's shoulder, not quite on it at first. Celeste waited. Then Margot let herself settle. The room did not change. But Margot did. Some part of her, wound tight for years, loosened with a quietness so deep it felt almost painful. She had known desire. She had known being wanted. She had known the kind of night that left marks no one else could see. But lying beside someone who had asked her to stay felt strangely more intimate than all of it. Because the night did not end at the wanting. It continued. Into warmth. Into breath. Into the soft, ordinary courage of not leaving. Margot fell asleep that way. Not fully certain. Not magically healed. Not untouched by what had happened with Sloane. But held by the simple fact that, for once, when the fire burned low, someone was still beside her. Morning came without drama. Gray light through the curtains. A gull calling somewhere outside. The faint clink of something in the kitchen. Margot woke slowly, disoriented by warmth that did not belong only to blankets. For a moment, she did not move. She registered the room first. Not hers. Celeste's. Then the pillow. Then the soft weight of the sheet at her waist. Then the empty space beside her, still warm. Her chest tightened before she could stop it. Old instinct. The body preparing for the familiar ending. But then Celeste appeared in the doorway wearing loose dark pants and a soft white shirt, hair slightly messy, 2 mugs in her hands. She paused when she saw Margot awake. "Good morning," Celeste said. The words were ordinary. Absolutely ordinary. Margot almost closed her eyes. "Good morning. Not I have to go. Not last night was lovely. Not I'll call you. Good morning." Celeste crossed the room and handed her a mug. "Strong coffee," she said. "As promised. In case you're terrible." Margot took it. Their fingers brushed around the ceramic. "I might be," Margot said. Celeste sat on the edge of the bed. "I'm willing to investigate." Margot looked at her. Celeste smiled, but there was something beneath it now. Not fear exactly. A carefulness. A woman holding back from falling too fast into something she wanted more than she had planned. Margot saw it because she recognized restraint. Celeste wanted her to stay. Not just in the room. Not just for coffee. But she was disciplined enough not to ask the next question too soon. That made Margot's throat tighten. She took a sip of coffee to hide it. It was excellent. Of course it was. Outside, the city began its morning without consulting them. Margot sat in Celeste's bed, holding coffee in both hands, looking at a woman who had given her heat, space, honesty, and a morning. Her phone was somewhere in her coat pocket near the door. She did not get up to check it. Not yet. Celeste noticed. She said nothing. And somehow, that silence felt like the most intimate thing of all. If part 4 pulled you into Margot's hardest choice yet, please like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments which moment stayed with you most. Sloane fighting for what they had, Margot finally stopping the old pattern, or Celeste asking her to stay. For those who want a little more time with these characters, I share extra audio scenes and bonus moments for her after Midnight Club members on Buy Me a Coffee. The link is in the description. Every bit of support helps me create more stories like this for you.